When I bought my quiet little farm on the edge of town, I thought I'd finally found peace. But that all changed when the new HOA president, Donna Whitaker, marched onto my land, demanding I comply with community standards for a neighborhood I didn't even live in. She wanted control of my land, and she nearly got it until I turned the entire town against her. When I bought the old farm on the edge of town, I wasn't looking for much. Just quiet, space, maybe a place to grow tomatoes and breathe for the first time in years. After nearly 2 decades of city noise, deadlines, and traffic that never slept, I needed a reset. I was tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of feeling like life was always happening to me instead of with me. This farm? It felt like the first real choice I'd made in a long time. It wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. The barn leaned like it had arthritis. The fields were overgrown, and the farmhouse smelled like it had been abandoned since the Nixon administration. But something about it felt real, solid, like if I worked hard enough, it might just come back to life. The days were slow but full. I'd wake up to roosters instead of alarms. My hands got dirty fixing fences, planting rows of beans and tomatoes, scrubbing years of grime off the wraparound porch. I started keeping chickens, fixed up an old tractor I found rusting behind the shed. It was work, but it was the kind that makes your back ache in a good way. And I was finally alone, but not lonely. At least, not until she showed up. It was a Tuesday morning. Clear sky. I was elbow deep in potting soil, trying to bring a dying blueberry bush back to life, when a sleek silver SUV rolled up my gravel driveway, like it owned the place. Out stepped a woman who looked like she had never stepped in dirt a day in her life. Blonde bob, sunglasses, clipboard in hand, and the kind of heels that sink 2 inches into fresh soil. She looked out of place. That's probably why I noticed her right away. She didn't even say hello, just marched straight toward me like I was late to a meeting. "Are you the property owner?" she asked, voice clipped and businesslike. I nodded, wiping dirt off my hands. "Yeah, can I help you?" She looked me up and down, then turned her attention to the barn like it personally offended her. "I'm Donna Whitaker, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association." I blinked. "Okay, nice to meet you." She didn't smile, just tapped her clipboard and said, "I'm here regarding some community violations. That structure," she pointed at my barn, "is non-compliant. It'll need to be removed or rebuilt according to HOA standards." I stared at her. I'm not in the HOA. She gave a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. All homes within the community boundary are subject to HOA oversight. "Yeah, but I'm not within your boundary," I said, a little slower this time. "This is a farm. It's county land, not part of Willow Creek. I checked before I bought it." She flipped through her papers like she hadn't heard me. "The lines have been fluid. Our most recent expansion included several peripheral properties. There's been some confusion." "Right. Well, there's no confusion on my end. I'm not part of it." She finally looked at me again. Really looked. There was something calculating in her eyes. "You're new here." I nodded. "Moved in about 4 months ago." Her eyes scanned the yard, my tractor, the shed, the line of wooden planters I'd built by hand. "I see. Well, you want to keep things tidy. We do take pride in maintaining a certain aesthetic around here." I crossed my arms. "I'll keep my place how I like it, thanks." There was a pause. Barely more than a breath, but the way her mouth twitched made something in my gut clench. "Everything in this area," she said, her tone smooth like honey over glass, "will be under HOA control soon. You'd be smart to cooperate." Then she turned, heels clicking against gravel like gunshots, and walked back to her car. I watched the SUV disappear down the road, a thin trail of dust in its wake. For a moment, I stood there wondering if that really just happened. And then I remembered her smile, tight, cold, forced. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a warning. And I had a feeling it was only the beginning. It started with a letter, a plain envelope, no return address, just my name and mailbox number written in perfect block letters. Inside was a notice of violation, something about unauthorized agricultural use and non-compliant exterior structures. I actually laughed at first. Thought maybe Donna had sent it by mistake. But then came the second letter, then a third, each one a little more aggressive. Fines for supposed code violations, threats of escalating legal action, citations that referenced bylaws I'd never even heard of, all of them stamped with the Willow Creek HOA logo at the top. I wasn't even part of the damn HOA. I called the number on one of the letters. A woman answered, flat voice, like she was half asleep. I asked who authorized these fines. She transferred me, then transferred me again. After the fourth hold, I was told someone from the board would get back to me. No one ever did. A week later, I found a sign at the edge of my property, just beyond the gate. It hadn't been there the day before. Future site of Willow Creek Community Development Project. Phase 4. My jaw tightened. I hadn't signed anything. No one had talked to me. My name wasn't mentioned. But there it was, in glossy plastic, bolted into the ground like it had always belonged there. I yanked it out and threw it into the barn. But the damage had already started. People from the neighborhood began slowing down as they drove past my place. At first it was just the usual looky-loose. Then I started noticing the same cars circling twice. A few folks even parked across the street, pretended to be on their phones while they stared at my house. One evening, a couple from 2 blocks over came up to my fence while I was watering the tomato patch. "You the one with the farm?" the woman asked. I nodded. She looked uncomfortable. "There's a rumor going around," she said. "HOA is planning to absorb this whole block. Your place is the last holdout." I frowned. "Absorb? This isn't some company merger. It's my land." The man with her leaned in slightly. "Donna's been saying the land's wasted out here, that it'd be better off developed. Better off, like it was trash needing to be recycled." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept playing everything over in my head. Her face, her voice, those signs. I knew I had to do something. So I went to the next town council meeting. It was held in a small multipurpose room at City Hall, the kind with old carpet and buzzing fluorescent lights. The place was packed. And sure enough, there she was, Donna Whitaker, front row, perfect posture, clipboard balanced on her lap, like a queen watching her court. I stood in the back, arms crossed, just listening. She was already speaking when I walked in, her voice carrying like she owned the air in the room. "We're just trying to ensure that the community evolves responsibly," she said sweetly. "The farm property adjacent to Willow Creek has been an eyesore for months. It's unsafe, unregulated, and it's affecting property values for everyone else." A few people nodded. Some even clapped. I felt heat rise in my face. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Everyone in that room knew who she meant. I raised my hand. The moderator gave me a nod. "I live on that farm," I said, loud enough for every last person to hear. "It's not part of Willow Creek, and it's not for sale. I've got the paperwork to prove both." Donna turned her head slowly, like she was annoyed I'd spoken at all. "Of course," she said, smiling that tight smile. "But the boundaries are always under review. The community has to grow, doesn't it?" I stared at her, and for a split second, I swear I saw it. Something behind her eyes. That wasn't about boundaries. It was about control. When the meeting ended, I headed toward the exit, but someone caught my arm near the door. A man in a tan jacket. Older, heavy set. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he said quietly. "She's done this before. Started small. Took over 5 houses on my block last year. Pressured the owners until they sold. All of it under the table." I looked at him, unsure what to say. "She'll push. She'll dig. And if that doesn't work, she'll bury you." He walked away before I could ask his name. I stood there in that doorway, the buzz of the light still echoing in my ears, and realized something that chilled me to the bone. Donna Whitaker wasn't just trying to control the neighborhood. She was trying to take everything. And I was next. I thought things would cool off after the town meeting. I was wrong. It started with a phone call from animal control. Some anonymous complaint about excessive animal noise coming from my property, my chickens, my goats, even the rooster, who, let's be honest, wasn't exactly quiet. But we lived in the damn country. They said they'd had multiple reports. 2 days later, a county inspector showed up unannounced, clipboard in hand, camera slung over his shoulder, looking as confused as I felt. Says, "Here you've got a non-permitted structure on site," he told me. I blinked. "Which one?" He pointed at the chicken coop I'd built myself out of reclaimed wood. I was proud of that coop. He wasn't. "Who filed a complaint?" I asked. He shrugged. "Came through the HOA liaison." I clenched my jaw. "I'm not in the HOA." "Yeah," he muttered, flipping his page. "I get that a lot around here." He left without citing me, but said they might follow up. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying it all. Donna's smirk at the meeting, the neighbor's warning, those letters. Everything felt off balance. Then came the worst day yet. It was a Sunday morning. Cool breeze, sun coming up over the pasture. I was out back, fixing a sagging gate when I heard the sound. Bleeding, but it was distant. Too distant. I ran to the goat pen and stopped dead. The fence was cut, not broken. Cut. A clean, horizontal slice through the wires. And the goats, my goats, were gone. I spent the next 4 hours chasing them down through brambles, along ditches, even halfway across the neighbor's orchard. One of them had wandered near the highway. Another was stuck in a drainage culvert. When I finally got them all back, I collapsed on the porch, covered in mud, my arms scraped to hell. That's when I made the decision. I was done playing nice. I drove straight to Willow Creek and parked across the street from the HOA office. Donna's silver SUV was right where I expected it, clean and smug in its little parking spot. I walked through the lobby like I had every right to be there, because at that point, I didn't care. She was inside, sipping from a glass mug, chatting with a younger man in khakis who looked like he'd never seen a splinter in his life. She looked up and smiled like I just walked into her brunch. "Well, hello, neighbor," she said, sweet as syrup. "What can we do for you?" "You can stop harassing me," I said, loud enough for the guy next to her to freeze mid-sip. She blinked. "I'm sorry. Animal complaints. Code violations. Fence sabotage. I know it's you, Donna." She tilted her head like she was studying a fly on her windowsill. "We don't file anonymous reports. That's handled through official channels." I laughed, but it came out wrong. Shaky, angry. "Cut the crap." She stood, still smiling. "I don't appreciate your tone, Mr. Porter. I suggest you lower your voice before this becomes a legal matter." I stared at her, pulse thudding in my ears. "This is a legal matter." "I'm afraid not," she said, walking toward me. "Yet." I turned and walked out before I said something that'd land me in jail. Her voice followed me out the door. "Do have a nice day." The ride home felt like a blur. When I pulled into the driveway, my stomach dropped. There was something on the barn, a piece of paper flapping in the breeze, taped right to the wood with bright orange tape. I walked up, heart pounding, and read it. Notice of imminent community lien and property assessment. Unpaid fees owed to Willow Creek HOA. It listed an amount, over $3,000. $3,000 in imaginary dues to an HOA I had never joined. I stood there in the dirt, my legs suddenly weak. My hands shook as I pulled the notice down. The sun was setting behind the trees, but I barely noticed. I went inside and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paper. That was the moment it hit me, really hit me. She wasn't going to stop. Not until she owned my land. Not until she buried me in paperwork, fines, and fear. And I realized something else. If I kept reacting, if I kept just defending myself, I was going to lose everything. That night, I poured myself a drink, opened my laptop, and started digging. If Donna wanted a fight, she just got one. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for when I started digging. Just that I had to find something. Something real. Something that proved I wasn't crazy. That this wasn't just some personal vendetta or bad luck. So I started where any pissed-off landowner would. Google. It didn't give me much. Just the standard stuff about Willow Creek's community charter, board minutes, public newsletters, that kind of thing. All polished and harmless. But then I remembered something from my days in the city. Every change to land use has to be filed publicly. Zoning changes, property line adjustments, annexation requests. They're all on record, somewhere. So I took a trip down to the county records office. It's a quiet little building that smells like dust and toner ink, with shelves full of manila folders and old maps rolled into tubes. The clerk behind the desk didn't ask many questions, just handed me a stack of zoning files from the last 2 years and told me to have at it. I spread them out on the table like a crime scene. The first thing I noticed was the red ink. A bunch of boundary maps had been amended, some minor, some big. And each time, the changes happened to include a property near mine. A strip here, a parcel there, always worded in the most boring way possible. But the names on the requests? Donna Whitaker. Donna M. Whitaker, president of Willow Creek HOA. Her name was on every single one. At first, I thought maybe this was just aggressive planning. Maybe she really believed she was expanding the HOA the legal way. But then I found one file that changed everything. An approval form from 8 months ago. It showed a community integration of 3 lots, including mine. Only I hadn't signed anything. No hearing. No notice. Nothing. My signature line was blank. I took a picture of it with my phone. Then another. And another. The clerk must have noticed my expression because he wandered over and asked if I needed help. Actually, I said, "You know anyone who used to serve on the Willow Creek board?" He scratched his chin. "You might try Al Burnham. He used to be vice president a while back. Quit suddenly. Nice guy if you can find him." I tracked Al down the next morning at a breakfast diner out on Highway 12. He was sitting alone in a booth, eating eggs and reading the classifieds. He looked surprised to see me. "You the farm guy?" he asked, setting down his fork. I nodded. "Heard you used to work with Donna Whitaker." His smile faded. "Yeah, unfortunately." We talked for almost an hour. Al didn't spill everything at first. Said he didn't want trouble. But after I showed him the photo of the zoning file, with my blank signature, something in him shifted. "She's been doing this for years," he muttered. "Start small. Adds a few feet to a boundary line. Claims she sent notices when she didn't. Files phony ballots, saying residents voted to approve the changes." I stared at him. "She fakes votes. Or buries the one she doesn't like," he said, stabbing his eggs with a fork. "I resigned after she tried to pull that with the Carter family's property. They sold cheap just to get her off their backs. Why hasn't anyone reported her?" He looked up at me, real serious. "Because she makes life hell for anyone who tries. Fines. Harassment. She even called Child Protective Services on one couple after they went public. Claimed their kids were living in unsafe conditions." I felt a chill run through my spine. "I think she's working with a developer," I said slowly, trying to flip land into new housing projects. Al leaned back and gave a bitter laugh. "Oh, she's not trying." "She is. Name's Vantage Group. Big firm out of state. She's been cozy with them ever since they put in that dog park nobody asked for. Rumor is she gets a cut of every sale." Everything clicked in that moment. The boundary expansions, the surprise inspections, the fines, the fake dues. It was never just about me being a problem. It was about my land being valuable. And Donna? She was running a scam under the cover of HOA rules. A fake queen with real power. I left that diner with a pit in my stomach, but also with purpose. That afternoon, I went home, cleared off the kitchen table, and started laying everything out like puzzle pieces. Zoning maps, photos of the notices, screenshots from the HOA website, printouts of old meeting minutes where Donna announced boundary changes no one remembered voting on, emails I'd exchanged with the county, even aerial images showing the creeping sprawl of Willow Creek. By nightfall, I had a pile thick enough to bury a horse, and the truth staring me in the face. Donna Whitaker wasn't just trying to steal my land. She was running a quiet little empire, built on lies, fear, and forged paper. But I wasn't scared anymore. I had proof, and it was time to use it. The next morning, I called a lawyer. His name was Alex Vega, mid-40s, sharp mind, straight shooter. I laid everything out on his office table, The maps, the notices, the blank signature line, even the photos I'd taken of the trespassing signs and the fake HOA bills. At first, he just listened with his arms crossed. I could tell he thought I was overreacting. But as he flipped through the zoning maps and boundary adjustments, his expression changed. His brow furrowed. He leaned in. "You didn't sign any of these?" "Not a single one." He turned to his assistant. "Get me the county filing codes for residential annexation. Last 2 years." By the time I left his office, we drafted a cease and desist notice addressed to Willow Creek, HOA, and Donna Whitaker personally. It was strong. Legal language, threats of civil liability, all that good stuff. Alex was skeptical it'd stop her, but he figured it would at least slow her down. It didn't. 3 days later, I caught a strange SUV parked near the back of my property. 2 guys in gray polos, sunglasses, boots too clean for farm work. One of them was holding a laser measuring tool. The other had a clipboard. I walked up and asked what the hell they were doing. "We're conducting a boundary assessment," one said flatly. "HOA request." I told them to get off my land. They didn't flinch. Just said I'd be hearing from their legal team. I called Alex. He was livid. Said it was technically trespassing, if we could prove it. So I made sure we could. That night, I installed cameras. 4 of them. 1 facing the driveway, 2 on the fence lines, and 1 pointed straight at the backfield where those guys had been poking around. The next night, just after midnight, I caught them again. Same SUV. This time, one of them climbed the fence and started planting small flags in my pasture like he was preparing for excavation. I downloaded the footage, burned it to a USB drive, drove straight to the sheriff's office, and filed a report. The deputy said they'd look into it. Yeah, sure. Later that week, a man showed up at my door, well-dressed, late 50s, polished shoes. He introduced himself as Councilman Ray Peterman. "I'm here to help smooth things over," he said, voice full of practiced concern. "I heard there's been some tension between you and the Willow Creek Board." I stared at him. "You're friends with Donna, aren't you?" He hesitated. "We've worked together, yes, but that's not why I'm here. This public back and forth isn't good for anyone." I folded my arms. "You're here to shut me up." "Let's not be dramatic," he said with a smile. "We're just trying to find a solution that doesn't cause trouble for the whole community." "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what Donna told the last guy she tried to run off his land." He adjusted his collar. "Mr. Porter, with all due respect, you'd be wise to let this go." I stepped back and slowly closed the door in his face. If they wanted quiet, they were about to get the opposite. That night, I went online and posted everything. Photos of the forged documents, screenshots of emails, copies of notices taped to my barn, even a clip from security footage showing the guy hopping my fence. I posted on every local forum, every community page, every neighborhood app one could find. I printed flyers and stapled them to telephone poles. I left stacks at diners, hardware stores, gas stations. People started noticing. My inbox filled with messages from neighbors I'd never met. Some wanted to help. Others had their own stories. The word intimidation came up more than once. By the time the next town meeting rolled around, I was ready. I didn't just show up. I showed up with a binder, a laser pointer, and a line of people behind me who were just as tired of being pushed around. I laid it all out. The forged signatures, the fake boundaries, the midnight trespassing. The silence in the room was deafening when I finished. Donna was there, of course, sitting near the back. For the first time, she wasn't smiling. Her arms were crossed. Her eyes locked on me like she was trying to burn a hole through my skull. When I walked out, a man caught up to me in the parking lot. He looked about 30 with a camera bag over his shoulder. "Mr. Porter?" "Yeah, I'm with Channel 9 News. We saw your posts online." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. "We'd like to hear your side of the story. Can you come in for an interview?" I stared at the card for a long second, then nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I've got a few things to say." My interview aired the following Tuesday. Prime time. Full segment. They used footage of my farm, clips from the town meeting, and Most importantly, the documents. They even ran the part of my security cam video where Donna's hired goon jumped the fence and planted those little survey flags behind my barn. The story hit like a hammer. By Wednesday morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Neighbors, friends, total strangers. Some called to say thank you. Some called to share their own stories. And a few just called to say, it's about damn time someone stood up to her. Within 48 hours, 3 different residents from Willow Creek posted their own experiences on local forums. Screenshots, letters, emails. One woman said Donna had fined her $500 for having a non-approved patio umbrella. Another claimed Donna threatened to evict her elderly father over a misplaced trash bin. And the worst one? A family said their child's therapy dog had been reported as an unauthorized animal and removed from the community. By Donna, people were furious. Even the ones who'd kept their heads down before started speaking up. The HOA board suddenly found itself under a microscope, and they did not like it. By the end of the week, the town council called an emergency session. City Hall was packed, standing room only, news vans outside, people holding signs that said things like, "No more Donna," and "Stop HOA abuse." Donna showed up late. She walked in wearing a stiff blue blazer, her hair pulled back, so tight it looked like it hurt. She didn't look rattled, at least not on the surface. She still had that fake calm glued to her face. But her eyes? Her eyes looked hunted. I sat front row, binder in hand, ready for round 2. The mayor called the meeting to order, and right away Donna asked to speak. She marched up to the mic, cleared her throat, and launched into a speech that sounded like it had been rehearsed in a mirror 100 times. She painted herself as a real victim, said she'd been harassed, slandered, unjustly targeted by a disgruntled landowner with a personal grudge. Claimed I had doctored the documents, said I manipulated the maps to make her look guilty, and then she did something that nearly made me laugh out loud. She cried, or tried to, force tears, voice cracking just enough to sound rehearsed. For a second, the room went quiet. Some folks shifted in their seats. She was good. I'll give her that. She knew how to sell a story. But I wasn't done. I stood and asked to be heard. The mayor gave me the nod. I walked up to the mic, set down my binder, and looked right at Donna. "I didn't forge anything," I said. "But you did." I pulled out the USB stick I'd brought and handed it to the council tech guy. He plugged it into the projector, and up on the screen came the footage. Night vision, time-stamped, clear as day. Her private contractors hopping my fence, walking right up to my barn, taping something to the door. One of them even looked straight at the camera, face fully visible. Gasps echoed across the room. Murmurs turned into full-on chatter. I turned back to Donna. "You said I made this up, but what kind of landowner forges fake fines against himself? What kind of man pretends someone broke into his barn just to make you look bad?" Silence. The board members behind her looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. One finally leaned into the microphone and cleared his throat. "Effective immediately," he said, voice shaky. "We're suspending President Whitaker pending a full investigation. All HOA expansion activity is frozen until further notice." Donna didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared straight ahead like she'd short-circuited. But I could see it. Her fingers twitching, her jaw clenched. For the first time since she showed up on my land, she wasn't in control anymore. And I knew, deep down, this was just the beginning. Because the town? They weren't done yet. The investigation didn't take long. Once the council saw the video and the stack of documents I put together, they opened a full inquiry into the Willow Creek HOA. Within a week, Donna's name was splashed across every local news outlet. Words like fraud, abuse of power, and criminal misconduct started floating around. She resigned before they could even vote to remove her. No speech, no public goodbye, just a one-sentence email to the board, and then she vanished, like a ghost with a bad haircut. And then the lawsuit started. 3 families filed civil suits against her personally. Not the HOA, her. False fines. Harassment. One woman claimed Donna ruined her credit by reporting unpaid fees to a fake collection agency. Another accused her of retaliating after rejecting a request to build a wheelchair ramp for her mother. The developers dropped her like she never existed. Vantage Group issued a bland statement about restructuring partnerships and prioritizing community trust. In other words, they cut their losses and ran. The HOA itself wasn't far behind. The town forced a vote to dissolve the current board and install a neutral oversight committee. All HOA expansion plans were canceled. The new board made one of their first official actions crystal clear. My land was permanently excluded from any future jurisdiction. It was in writing, signed, sealed, stamped, untouchable. I can't lie. There was a moment, the first night I saw that letter, where I just sat on the porch and cried. Not because I was sad, but because the weight was finally gone. The pressure, the fear, the feeling that everything I'd built could be taken away because of one woman's ego. People came by over the next few days. Neighbors I barely knew. Some brought food. One guy showed up with a box of nails and said, "Heard your barn could use some help." It felt strange at first, all that kindness. But I let it in, bit by bit. One evening, I stood at the edge of my field, hands on my hips, watching the sun go down behind the tree line. The barn was patched up. The chickens were clucking. My goats were finally staying in their pen. And there was no sign of a single HOA notice, security creep, or silver SUV. Just quiet. The kind of quiet I came here for. The kind I'd fought to keep. I thought about everything that happened. Every sleepless night. Every broken fence. Every paper trail I followed until the truth bled through the ink. Donna Whitaker thought she could bully me off my land. She thought she could control a town with fine print and fear. She was wrong. I took a deep breath, looked out over the field I'd bled and fought for, and let the silence sink in. She thought she could take my land with lies. Instead, I turned her empire into ash. This farm is mine and always will be